Rolling. Ms. Pedro would like to discuss one of the votes from last night. So I'll give her a quick moment here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a prepared statement that I'd like to read. After reflecting on my vote last night in regards to ratifying the finance director appointment, I'd like to change my vote. I can't support the appointment of this position. I'd like a chance to explain why. When I was in the middle of speaking with the candidate, Ms. Mills, about the difference between CPA and non-CPA status and why I thought that was important, Mr. Rayner had an unexpected outburst that surprised and distracted me. During this outburst, he called my opinion an implication to which I take offense. It's my job as an elected official to ask questions and speak for the people that elected me to be their voice. To me, the implication of this outburst is that I'm not supposed to question anything or give my opinion, when in fact this council is the only supervision that Mr. Rayner has. Since I was cut short during my exchange with Ms. Mills, I want to point out that she has held many different positions, and they average out to about 2.5 years per position. Yet she stated that it will take 3 years of classes to get her CPA status back. I also never found out who's going to pay for these classes, and this isn't personal. I don't even know Ms. Mills. I'm just not comfortable with this. Moving forward, especially through this budget process, I want to continue to do my due diligence and ask questions and voice my opinion, and I would like to continue without intimidation or the implication that it's not my right to do so. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. I'm prepared to move on.
Okay. So we will get rolling tonight. First, we're going to review revenues. Mr. Rayner?
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just give a quick executive summary for those that weren't here yesterday. Page 14 of the budget book. Just a quick rundown. The projected tax rate is $15.97.4. This represents a 3.59% increase over last year. Last year's rate of 15.42. The tax levy is $54,381,575. Total revenue increases by 2.23%. I won't read everything there, but we're continuing a number of initiatives that have been ongoing for a number of years. The differences being that we're increasing the, we begin paying principal on the police station bond this year, next fiscal year. We increase the retirement contingency as more people who are under the defined benefit plan are leaving as they approach retirement age to try to lock in those benefits before next contract negotiations. And as voted on by the council, we will fold the Prudence Island transfer station into the general tax base. You see a quick summary of the revenues there, but if you would turn to page 20, please. We'll start with tax revenue. Okay, projected real estate taxes, $46,348,970. That's an increase of $1,747,832. Commercial taxes, proposed is $4,818,631. That's an increase of $130,366. Personal property taxes are projected to also increase slightly to $1,154,055. That's an increase of $118,163. The motor vehicle taxes, due to the legislation that was passed last year, the motor vehicle phase-out legislation, are due to decrease by $259,415. So we only project $2,059,920 for a total tax revenue in that section of $54,381,575. Prorated collections, as I stated last night, our tax collector has picked just about all the low-hanging fruit there is to pick. We project that to decrease by $13,000 to $45,000 in the next fiscal year. Payment in lieu of taxes, that's projected to remain the same, $11,500. And prior year collections projected to slightly increase to $1,150,000. That's a $50,000 increase. So gives you a subtotal there of $55,869,626. Okay. Next page, state aids. As you're aware, the state aid is dropping, as I talked about last night. School aid is projected to drop 6.52% to $4,190,058. School housing aid, this is the reimbursement for capital projects. We're projecting $715,236, a decrease of 9.95% over last year. The revenue from the hotel meal taxes, we're projecting an increase of 10.48% to $312,636. Public Service Corps, this is the telephones, this comes from the state, is projected at $216,894, a slight decrease of 2.91%. Motor vehicle excise, due to slightly increased $94,646, and then the phase-out reimbursement from the state is supposed to kick in this year. We're projected to receive $257,122. State library, we are a pass-through. We get this money from the state and we turn it over to the library, is projected at $114,736 for a total in revenue state aids of $5,901,355. Revenue departmental, I'm sorry, that is, town clerk overall is projected to increase by 14.81%. There were new fees put in place. So that total revenue is due to increase to $667,030. Building inspection, you see an increase there in electrical inspections. When we get into expenditures, we have hired a new electrical inspector. The previous one retired, so the fees have gone up. We project a 0.79% increase in building inspection revenue to $282,200. Planning department, this is the planning board and Leon. We're looking at a slight decrease of 2.38% to $41,000. The harbor master, we're looking at a decrease there. It was projected last year that the fines would increase. That has not materialized. So we brought that down to $1,000. So you'll see a decrease over last year. So the projected revenue is now $101,000. Tax collector, we're looking at fees and revenue totaling $319,500, a decrease of 6.36% over last year. Continued. Revenue from the police department and the various services that they provide. We're looking at a slight increase to $230,700. That's a 6.12% increase.
Yeah, question? Mr. Reyna.
Yes.
Mr. Reyna, last night you mentioned the EMC, which is in this category, could possibly have a $3,000 grant because of the med spot. Would that get put into this budget in this current year?
Where do we record the Yeah. We'll get to that when we cover special revenue. That'll go into a special revenue account.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Finance, as we spend down the police bond, there'll be less interest from that account, so we project $10,000 this year, a decrease of 80%. Fire department, for the fire marshal and the ambulance service, And motor vehicle mitigation, we're looking at a slight increase, 0.88%, to $860,000. Probate court, we're projecting that to remain flat at $40,000. Municipal court, as we are now in full force with the on-site wastewater ordinance, we project an increased revenue there to $3,000, so it's an increase of 100%, just about over last year. Recreation, the recreation coordinator is starting essentially from scratch, rebuilding the department after Tim Dunbar's departure. We are looking at revenues of $21,775, a decrease of 34%. That's a projection. I hope it's better, but we're trying to be realistic. Prudence Island Transfer Station sticker sales, because the Prudence Island Transfer Station is now in the general fund, is paid for from the general fund. The sticker sales from Prudence Road residents will be also added into the general fund, and we project $22,500 in Prudence Island sticker sales. And miscellaneous license and fees, we're projecting that to remain flat at $30,000. So for a total there of $2,628,705, a slight increase of 1.9% in departmental revenues. And rental and miscellaneous, the Manor House is projecting an increase in their revenue, which is a benefit to the town. So the turnover to the town is projected to be at $286,458, a 4.17% increase. The Melville Pond Campground, there's a bunch of construction going on over there. He's being very conservative in his numbers. He's projecting $66,627. That's a minus 15.39%. He has lost, the Navy has clamped down on the ability to use there's an open space there that belongs to the Navy that traditionally he has used for 4th of July, Folk Festival, and the Jazz Festival, and that's no longer available to us. The Equestrian Center, we're projecting that to remain flat another year, i.e. no revenue turned over to the town, because in accordance with the contract, until they reach a certain rate, all the profit, all the excess revenue they're making is going into capital improvements of town property. Polo Fields, we're expecting that to remain flat at $16,000. Additionally, the same for special events. This is Beast of the East and tournaments that happen down in the 70 complex. Quidnick Island Christian Academy is closing shop in June. We are looking for another tenant, so just to be on the safe side, we don't know what, if anything, will go into that building, so we removed that revenue line. We receive income from the cell towers, the lease of the cell towers, and the operator. We're projecting, in accordance with the contract, an increase of 5%. For the lease, it's $48,371, and singular remains, that's contractual, remains the same. We have the school SRO grant, that's the same as last year. The farmland, this is the Triple S fields. Until we start that project, we lease that. We give Mr. Escobar the ability to plant corn there, and he pays the town $860 and maintains that area. Prudence Island Dock, we're looking at revenue of $7,626, also remaining flat, and additionally other incomes remaining flat at $25,000. So a decrease in rental and miscellaneous of 2.27% to $548,943. So on page 25, you see the overall revenue projecting to increase at just about the rate of inflation, 2.23%. to the projected $63,247,183.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have questions on the revenues?
So,
Go ahead.
well, I'm just, when I go from page 14 to page 20 to page 25, I find out things calling taxes don't line up on a value. So in the last week or two, I've been trying to figure out why that doesn't happen. And I'd like to understand how that calculation on tax levy is equated, and which is the reason I asked Matt last night if the vouchers we were processing would change the certified rate of this year, what we currently have versus last. So my understanding is this, that we take the net assessed level within the town, divide by 1,000, multiply by the tax rate, and come up with the maximum tax levy that is possible in the town.
Good evening,
Good
Matt.
evening. The maximum tax levy is, we take the levy from last year, real estate and tangible,
Yep.
and that number gets multiplied by 4%. And
Only
that's
those
the-
two categories.
Well, yeah, it's residential, commercial, real estate, and tangibles.
Okay, so it's the
So
four.
that's what factors the 4%. So taking last year's numbers, the maximum we could raise in taxes is just over $2 million.
So you don't take the net value of the town, assessment on everybody, houses, cars, personal property tax, divide by 1,000, multiply by the tax rate, and see what the levy is. You do it
That-
from last year's rate.
No. You're talking two different things.
Okay.
What we do is, tax roll gets cleaned up, there are abatements from appeals, there are changes, demo, new construction. Those get figured out with the new assessed values.
Yep.
You subtract out the exemptions, and you get net assessed value,
Okay.
okay? Now, that net assessed value gets multiplied times the tax rate to give you the levy.
Stop right there. So if I go to page 20, is the value you give me there the net assessed value? Or is that the raw value without the
Those are
deductions?
net assessment.
That-
It's the
that's-
third one down.
Yep,
Those are the,
the 3367, right?
yes.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Now, just some of your numbers, no, quite don't.
Well, I'm off by $10,000, and I'm not worried about 10 in my
Okay.
calculations.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
Because
things
this
get
number,
multiplied.
this is a
there are
live number, and it
adjustments,
keeps changing, correct? I get
And
that.
it is fluid, those numbers. I mean, every day it changes.
Yep, I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
So,
Yep.
yeah, no, that's, I was going the same place. Because on page 25, you've got taxes at 52,961,680. On page 20, you've got total taxes at 54,381,575. And on page 14, you've got total taxes at 54,168,180.
You've got, the collection rate impacts that, and then
Which-
also, when you say taxes, it's not only this year's levy, but it's the prorated roll and it's the prior year collections that all get calculated.
Okay,
So
that's,
that's
so
why
prior
nothing
year.
comes out like that.
Okay.
All set
I'm as set as I can be.
for now? Okay. Mr. Fitzmaurice, you had a question? Or a comment?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of comments. First, I'd like to say that last year we had some recommended changes that are in this budget, and I want to give my appreciation to the administration. The first was Little Compton revenue had not been counted on the town side total budgets. It is now in this budget, and so the numbers are reflected correctly. So I want to thank the administration for that. Also, in the past, I don't think we ever displayed all of the debt instruments, bonds and warrants, what have you, all of the data. In other words, the period of the loan, the interest rate of the loan, the date it was issued, and how much it was. All of that is now also in the budget, which I want to extend my appreciation for. I'd like to speak to the tax assessment on residential and commercial properties, which in this case is going to rise from the current year 15.42 mill rate to a mill rate of 15.974, which, as reflected in the town administrator's budget, is an increase on property taxes to the homeowners, and I want to specify that, of 3.59%. That's a great deal. We have a rising trend over the last few years. It might not surprise you to know that I keep records. And if I look at the last 5 years, the interest rates, the inflation rates are cumulative is about 7.2%. And I can give you the data if you want it, but that's what it is. And including this budget, and again, this is skewed because some of our inflation rates are calendar, and our budget, of course, starts halfway through the year. So they're somewhat skewed, but still comparative relationship. So it's 7.2 for the inflation, and it's 12.64 for the increase in property taxes taken as a whole. I'm talking now about the entire levy. So we think that that's a bit much. I would read the last few years' rates of tax increases. Again, I'm back to the levy. The total levy, current year is 3.3. Last year was 3.28. Previous year, 16 and 17. Fiscal year is 2.32. Previous year to that is 1.20, and then it's 2.54. So I read these numbers out as an illustration of the fact that we're rising over time. And as Mr. Heflin pointed out, the maximum you can tax is 4% increase on the specification that he gave you. And if we're about, by my calculation, somewhere around $270,000 short of the maximum, in other words, 4%, on the levy, and I'm talking about numbers now, total dollars. And so I remind the council something that they probably don't hear very often, because we are approaching 4%. This council needs 6 affirmative votes to pass any budget that's over 4%. And that's in the law. And I heard the formal interpretation by then Auditor General Almonte about that. So that comes from a very good source. So 6 affirmative votes. It means everybody has to show up, and you have to have 6 votes voting yes. That's a high hurdle to get over. And, you know, we seem to be increasing the rate at which we're burning money. Maybe that's not the proper term, but we're using money, the people's money here, and we're starting to approach that point. The trend is definitely up. You've seen the chart that the town administrator included in his remarks, and you know, we're getting there. So, but 3.59 is too high. I don't think it's justified by either inflation, which is a good gauge of costs, operating costs year over year, and we're running around 55% of the tax rate is equal to the inflation rate. So the rest of that, 45%, over the inflation rate. I'm getting a little technical maybe, but that is the point. And Our costs are increasing faster than the rate of inflation. And, you know, we're gonna push up against these tax limits, and then the council's gonna face a crisis. This needs to be pared back. And I don't know that that's gonna be happening here, but I highly recommend it. I think the tax rates are too high, and the trend is alarming. And we haven't had this high a level of taxation levied on residential and commercial properties in a good number of years. And so again, I like to have the council look for savings in this budget and attempt to get this number down. But it's not just an esoteric discussion. I've illustrated, I think, the problem with growth in this number. And I assure you, you're not going to get 6 affirmative votes. And oh, by the way, you have to send, if you do get 6 affirmative votes, you have to send it up to the Auditor General and the Division of Municipal Revenue to get permission to exceed 4%.
But this budget is at 3.59, so we're not even approaching the 4%.
Well, I think it's a matter of perspective. I think we're not there yet, but the trend is in that direction.
For a few different reasons. This
think
year is a bad year. We've added $137,000 for the Prudence Island Transfer Station. We've lost almost $300,000 in state revenue taken away from the schools. We've put $500,000 on debt service from the police station. A lot of this, as Mr. Rayner covered last night, a lot of this is the bad year. And the out years, as we go in the next couple of years, will be better, and the increases will not be as high.
Well, one of those is a self-inflicted wound, if I may use that term, and that is the debt service on the police station. The council passed that bill. It's now come due. Next year it'll be slightly less than $500,000 because these things decline over time in the 20-year span of this bond. But you're also pushing your cost of employment here, in other words, cost of personnel, which is our major cost in the municipal side, at rates that are substantially above the taxing rate and above inflation. Last year was about 5.25%. The previous year was 8.5%. You can't afford to push salaries and benefits like that. And I haven't had a chance to take a look at the recently approved labor contracts, but I'm hoping for the best in that area. We're in a decline, 2-year period of decline in the cost of personnel on the municipal side, but it still is not low enough to sustain this budget for more than a year or two. And you're going to be right at 4%, and you won't know how to get past it without laying off people. So just want to point out that that's where we're headed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kessler?
Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzmaurice Stoneleaf. You think we're within $240,000 of 4%?
270, I think was the number.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Mr. Kessler.
Do you think we're within $246,000 of the 4% cap?
Well, judging from what Mr. Heflin said, yes. Somewhere in that neighborhood, somewhere between 250,000 and 300,000 is our limit.
So I guess my question to Mr. Rayner was, if we did include the road program at its current state, we would be at the cap if we did not back that service off.
Yeah, when we calculated the budget, obviously we knew not to go over the 4%. A little bit of history here. This is the 19th version of the budget since last August. This has gone from being 10% over the cap to what it is today. We are at, when we calculated this, when you do the property, the commercial, and the tangibles, it came out to about 3.97. Theoretically, we could go right up to the cap, but we're not safe if we do that. But yes, to answer your question, Mr. Kessin, if we wanted to raise the levy slight, we can do the calculations here, we could come up with that money, I guess.
So what I'm sitting here afraid of, because I get a lot of compliments from DPW and the way that they're maintaining the roads, that in 2000 and, help me, Mr. President, 14 or is it 15, where we had $1 million, we dropped it to 870, 850. We went to 600, and now we're down to,
We dropped from,
No,
went
we
to
went
750,
750,
it's at 800, now back to
now we're
6.
6.
yeah, so we're doing delayed delayed repairs on the roads. Yet, if we looked at to try to maintain services that the town supplied, we're well over the cap. And we can always fall into the cap as long as we don't repair the roads. And I hope we're not heading in that direction.
I'll be honest, I didn't quite follow that, but
Most people don't. I can try again.
But as I tried to illustrate last night, I mean, we studied the road surface rating. Our road surface rating right now is well into the good category, or satisfactory category. That is an extremely high rating for New England. We had, I think it's 73.45, so I get your point. What I was trying to illustrate last night is that by putting $600,000 into the roads, we only have, it's not a guarantee, but we only have a potential drop of less than 0.4% in our road surface rating. And to get us over the hump, we knew 2 years ago that 2019 was going to be the tough year. We get past 2019, our debt service starts to drop off considerably. In 3.5 years, it'll be well over $1 million expired debt. So what we're looking to do is put $600,000 in the roads to essentially maintain the current road surface rating, and then plus it back up again when money becomes available next year.
Well, I hope that happens, because we started out at $1 million, and the assessment back in 2010 was that we needed to spend $1 million against the roads, and here we now are supplying services at almost half the value. At half the value. Sorry about that one.
You're absolutely right. And when that program was proposed, it was also proposed that it would be reevaluated once we got to a satisfactory road surface rating, and then it would be evaluated year by year. So it was never presented as $1 million forever. And again, I would love to put the $850,000 into the roads. We've worked very hard to do that. As you see, as we go through the budget, you will see that there are a lot of cuts. And as I've been, I'm the point man. I've got department heads that are not real happy with me. But you can look at it one of two ways. Either we spread the pain equally or we spread the wealth equally. But I'll harp on the fact that we have a hump that we have to get over.
I just, again, not maintaining services, it's a tough one on my screen. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. President, I intended to speak to the roads in the DPW budget, which is where it's located. But in view of the discussion, I'd like to get a little indulgence and go into that briefly, if I may. The road project was based on a study that was done in 2012. At that time, and I realize things may have changed, but the experts that came in and evaluated our roads estimated that the break-even point, in other words, the maintenance point, at that time was $750,000. When I calculate against inflation, and again, this is consumer CPI inflation, it's not the inflation for road paving. But in any case, that number has grown to about $820,000 now. And that tells me that, we've suddenly started dropping fairly quickly. And it's a 25% decline over this current year. I will also pass on something to the council they probably already know, and that is, this is a program in which you have considerable citizen support for. It's something that they see, they can point to, in many cases they can smell their tax dollars at work. And but if we get behind on this, and I was very much struck by the firm's estimate of our liability in this business. I don't remember what it was, but it was a huge number. It was by far the largest number the town has. If we don't maintain these roads, the cost of catching up is immense. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Ujifusa?
Just a couple comments. I believe, first of all, the police station was not a self-inflicted wound. The population of this town voted in favor of it, and so I believe it is absolutely appropriate that we took out a bond for it. Secondly, even though we've been focusing here about a 3.59 increase in the tax rate from 15.42 to 15.974%, I direct your attention to page 16, which talks about the historical rates of inflation and tax levy increases. In fact, that page does not show a trend of increasing. If anything, if you look at the difference between the percentage of tax levy and the U.S. inflation rate year by year, the difference in 2013 is 60%. In 2014, the difference is 52%. In 2015, it's 82%. And so what you're seeing, and then 10% and 56%. So I think what you're seeing is even though the tax levy increase percentage rate might be lower, let's say in the year 2015, it was actually 82% above the U.S. inflation rate in 2015. So it's a little bit deceptive to only consider the percentage of levy increase, because that number doesn't reflect that the town is spending more than the inflation rate. Also, we have to look at what the tax levy is, and rather than the tax rate, and the tax levy is 2.23%. So I just want to clarify those points.
The
Tax levy 3.3.
the tax levy is 3.59.
No.
The amount of increase in spending is 2.23,
Right.
because we are getting less money from the state. So we have to make it up, unfortunately, on our own.
But if we're talking about the historical rates of inflation versus the tax levy increases, as that's how page 16 is labeled, there is no trend upward. The highest one difference seems to be in 2015,
Because it doesn't account for the lack of revenue from the state.
for whatever reason.
One more quick comment, and then Mr. Greaves got a comment, and then we're going to move on.
I just want to respond to the remarks of Councilwoman. Yes, I should have used better terms. However, no bond goes before the people that wasn't first approved by a council. It wasn't your council, wasn't this one, it was the previous one. And the citizens did approve that, and the council, in my judgment, is absolutely required to go forward with it. But to characterize it as an event, a financial event, that was beyond our control is not quite accurate. Thank you.
Mr. Grebe? Good evening.
Good evening. Tom Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive. I've got a couple of questions because I've been trying to get through the revenue part myself. Sort of paying homage to Ms. Staven. Going to page 14, I do not understand, and maybe Matt explained it and I just didn't catch quick enough. The levy, according to the bullet point 2, is $54,381,575. You go down to the numbers below the bullet points, and you see the taxes are $54,168,180. I don't know how you get from one to the other, and I couldn't find anything in the book that allowed me to.
Mr. Grave, those numbers, 54, 168, 180 is 11, is plus the prorated, plus the pilot,
plus the prior year calculation. And that'll give you the 2.7%.
Okay. Now, if you look then at the 2018 number, that is actually higher than the levy was, and I don't understand how one can be lower in
Same
one.
reason, because that number is levy plus the prorated plus the prior year.
But the levy, all right, then maybe I misunderstood. The tax levy in the second bullet point is $54,383,000.
That's the levy, the proposed levy for the upcoming year prior to any collection rate adjustments.
Okay, all right, so it's all in collection rate adjustments.
We're anticipating a collection rate of 97.55.
Okay,
I might mess up that number.
very good,
Well-
thank you.
So the levy is a number, but we don't expect to collect the entire levy.
Okay, now, but why would that number then be, if that includes the collection portion, why would that number be different than what's shown on page 25? Maybe this is something I should go up with the finance department, but it wasn't here for the last week. You go to the page 25, and the proposed budget is $52,961,000.
Right. That's what I asked before. Page 25.
Matt,
2.69.
can you do me a favor and just come up to the microphone so that everybody at home can hear you too? Thank you, I appreciate that. Well, your doctor called me and told me you have to get your exercise in, so.
If you look here, it's 2.69% change, and if you take the calculation from here, the taxes plus the prorated, plus the pilot, plus the prior year collections, that number to that number is 2.7 rounded.
That's what you did in the spreadsheet, right?
That's page 14.
That wasn't...
No, I understand, but these are the prorated pilot, it gets up to 55.
I'll have to go back and look at it again.
Yep, but that's before the collection rates.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Whoa.
It's not as, it's not arithmetic, it's a little bit,
I just wanted to comment.
Sure.
If you intend to make this understandable by the public, we really need to have more of an explanation and/or better labels, because each one of the numbers that I mentioned is labeled taxes,
Yeah.
not taxes after prorate, not taxes or whatever. We need better, in order to understand and have the public understand what you're saying, it needs to be a more explained document. Thank you.
Any questions, further questions from the council or anybody else from the audience? Mr. Kessel?
So, one more question, and this is a pretty easy one. Mr. Fitzmaurice stated that the school's revenue was included the Little Compton money?
Correct.
So the 6.3 on page 25, the 6.3, $63,247,183 includes the Little Compton money of $1.577283?
When we go through the school budget, you'll see exactly how that got.
Because it's not labeled on the left-hand side that the 190,000 from the federal, in fact, the $1,557,283 is included in this 63,247,183 that's on page 25. I don't see where it says school aid, school housing aid. I don't see where it says Little Compton money. So Mr. Fitzmaurice stated that we had the Little Compton money included in our total revenue.
You don't see it.
Maybe I just don't see it. I might need some help extra, at the staff the school or something.
Just like old times.
Absolutely. D-ring, last seat.
The Little Compton aid has always been in the revenue, it's just been shown on the school side, not the town side.
Where
Right,
is
so
it?
it's not in our total revenue, is what I'm
It's
saying.
in the total revenue of 63 million, because that has to balance out in the end of the year.
Okay.
Right,
When
so,
you get to the expenditures, you'll see when we get to the school budget, in the expenditure, and they'll talk about it tonight, you'll see the total ask for the school.
oh, I know what it is.
And if you look at page 54,
That's right. That's what they did. You took it out and then
correct,
put it as an expenditure. I got it.
Okay, I'm
That's-
good.
so
That's
you
what it
will
is
see
right
where
here.
it's included.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Anybody else? All right. Oops. Pardon me when I get back up, so I have the exact number here. All right. We need a provisional approval of the revenue line of $63,247,183
On page,
on page 25.
25.
So moved.
And Mr. Rayner, I guess I'll ask this question of, and if Chris and Anna, when you get up next, if you think about it, does anybody anticipate anything changing other than what they may do to us at the State House in terms of excise taxes and others? Is there anything else in here that we're looking at in terms of health insurance numbers and all those things are good, solid numbers? We don't anticipate any changes in the next
Health
6
insurance
weeks.
is a solid number. We received that from the trust. I guess with state aid, I don't know if that could change between now and June 30th.
Just enrollment would be,
Yeah.
you're projecting enrollment, but...
From Little Compton or something like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the rate itself is a lot different.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay. Any other questions on the revenue? Motion is to set the revenue line item provisionally at $63,247,183. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have the expenditure. We're going to start our expenditures with the school department, since it's the largest expenditure that we have. Good evening, Superintendent Riley.
Good evening. So I'm going to use, as you know, we've presented you with a budget book that takes you from the macro to the micro for the public tonight. I'm just going to use our budget presentation, which is tab 2, to kind of give you the big picture. The last few slides will have some of the detail, and then Chris will be happy to walk you through any questions on any of the detail as we go through. So, okay, thank you. So as you know, when we prepare our budget, our goal is always with our mission in mind, and that is to improve student achievement annually. We do this through the work of our strategic plan, which has 5 major objectives. We're going into the last year of our strategic plan, and actually we'll begin working on our next 5-year plan over the next probably 10 to 12 months. So we'll be wrapping up this strategic plan. If you go to objective 1, ensuring excellence in student achievement across all grade levels. This is the focus of our spending for this year. We are going to be increasing opportunities for co-teaching across the district, and just to give you a little background on that, as we continue to try to improve our proficiency scores, one of the places where we have a gap is for our special ed students. Their scores and proficiency are significantly below our regular education students. Co-teaching is a model in which we service students by providing 2 teachers in the classroom, a special educator and a regular educator. We're going to increase those opportunities, especially focused at the elementary school next year. We currently have a literacy coach who services grades K through 8. We have a math coach that services K through 8 and a science coach that services K through 8. Because literacy has 2 parts, the reading and the writing, it's really a large load for one person, so this budget includes a second literacy coach to help support both reading and writing K through 8. Annually review our core curriculum. This year's core curriculum that will be reviewed is social studies. Of course, that doesn't mean we forget the other content areas. They're just in a different place in the revision cycle, but social studies will be the main focus for next year. And then we continue to support our staff with professional development. We have particularly been working with the state on something called the multi-tiered systems of support, which is really around supporting students' social emotional needs along with their academic needs. To that end, we've been focused on PBIS, which is a positive behavior intervention system, along with restorative justice, which is a similar project geared more towards the upper middle school and high school students. So we will continue to do that work. Thank you. Upon graduation, all our students will be well prepared to embark upon their intended college or career pathway. To that end, we continue to offer students the PSAT and the SAT during the school day. The state does reimburse us for one grade level of PSAT and for the SAT, so we only have to expend funds for one grade level of PSAT. We also continue to increase our work around Project Lead the Way. That is a recognized career and technical education program in the state. So we are creating an engineering academy within the high school that continues to be well subscribed to by students, and we have applied to the state to make that a fully recognized career and tech ed program for which we can tuition students in. And then finally, we had a review of our graduation requirements and have updated that starting with our current freshmen. They have a new set of graduation requirements aligned to the state's change in graduation requirements. In terms of effective leadership of human capital, again, we will provide professional development around both our MTSS work, the social emotional learning, in addition to co-teaching and more training around safety. As you know, we had an incident this year, which I've been before you previously asking for that safety money. We also want to continue to train our teachers and to provide opportunities to train students to work and be safe in our schools. We are required by the Basic Education Plan to provide induction for new teachers. We funded that partially out of a grant last year. We'll be funding that out of the operations budget for this year. And then due to the increases in enrollment and programming around our co-teaching, we are increasing certified staff by about 8.7%. The opposite of that is we have reduced administrative staff and some of our special ed assistants since we're hiring more special education teachers. Objective 4, which is creating and sustaining education and physical infrastructure for the 21st century. We are continuing our one-to-one computer initiative with students. Next year, all of grades 3 through 9 will be one-to-one. Grades 3, 4, and 5 will not be taking their computers home, but they will have a one-to-one computing device in school during the school day. As you know, we've been working to expand the take-home one-to-one. Starting with grade 6, we'll be up to grade 9 for next year with a one-to-one device. We have a full technology-focused professional development day. We've been attracting teachers from other parts of the state to come to our PD, and we try to bring in a nationally recognized speaker annually for that professional development. And then we have hired a technology coach at the high school to support the one-to-one initiative going on at the high school as we continue to roll up the grades. Objective 5 is managing that financial, physical, and technological infrastructure to enable the previous 4 objectives. This is where you'll see our Little Compton tuition agreement. It has a small CPIU increase. You'll notice when I go over the revenues, there is an increase due to an increase in enrollment from Little Compton students, so there is an increase in that line. We have maintained an increase in our furniture fixtures line and also our repairs line, just part of that preventative maintenance program that we've been doing with Aramark. We continue to support that. And then this year, we will have additional revenue from Academy students. So last year, we did post for our 2 currently approved career and tech ed programs. We have our film and our film program, and we also have an early childhood program. We had 2 students last year. This year, you'll see that we have more students interested in those academies. I think we're up to 12 students now. If our engineering program gets approved, that will give us another increased opportunity to tuition more students in. So when you see our recommended budget requests, you'll see that they're tied to all of these things that I've been talking to you about. We also, at the end of our meeting with the school committee, had some budget conversations around some additional supply funding for shortages. As they met with teachers around the district, there were always things that come up during the school year that were unplanned for. So you'll see we had tagged in a small $10,000 in extra supply money at the end to make sure that we didn't have shortages throughout the year. So now when you look at our proposed budget changes, I'll go through maybe some of the biggest changes here. So if you notice salaries, the detail is in the operating budget tab, but that's only going up 2.2%. And that really, even though you'll see that we're increasing staff by 8 certified staff, the 2.2% is just due to some really good hires last year. We didn't, some positions went unfilled for part of the year, and then we were able to hire teachers at a much lower step than the teachers who left that position. So there was a good amount of savings there. So you'll see that the increase is small, even though we are growing that line. Employee benefits, this does not account for the $142,000 that I know Chris and Mr. Rayner worked on. So that 104 increase is actually, there's a $142,000 decrease for that line instead, which is actually going down about 0.5% versus going up 1.2%. Our professional services that you see going up 6%, we have to provide a student with a health care provider on the bus. That's an outside service. That is actually the biggest driver of that $64,000 increase in that line. The property services, again, tags back to increasing money for our general repairs and maintenance as we continue to do that preventative work. The other purchase services, you'll see the $81,000 decrease. That is a reduction in our out-of-district tuitions. Just had a reduction in that line. And finally, as you go down, the 17.9% in property is the addition of our 4th year of our technology lease as we continue to roll out the one-to-one program. So there'll be one more year before that line gets stabilized at a 5-year rollout. And so even though this says the change in the proposed budget is, the $38,925,579 with an increase of 2.2%, if you deduct the $142,000 for health care, that number will shrink down to the number you saw in Mr. Rayner's presentation of $38,783,579, or 1.8% increase over last year. And now if you flip to the last one, you'll see our budget revenues. We expect our impact aid to stay the same. That's the money we receive for our military students, our military families. State aid, as you well know, is decreasing by about $292,000 for next year. Our local revenue, the increase is a small increase in Little Compton tuitions that we'll be receiving for next year. And so our town appropriation after the reduction of the health care is $797,470, or 2.49% from last year.
I know you guys have done a very good job, and I know specifically Chris has done a very good job of kicking over every rock to try and limit the damage that the state aid is being cut. I don't suppose there's any more rocks to kick over.
No, we actually, in the last true-up, lost $12,000 more in our aid, which we'll find in that extra supply money probably that we added, but I think that was it, right, 12,000?
12,000 in our state aid number, and then we did get emergency approval for the safety improvements, so that'll be about $70,000 to $75,000 back to the town.
So just to clarify that for everybody, that the money that we approved for you to spend out of the, whatever the heck it was called. Impact fees. Thank you all. The impact fees is being refunded at a 30% or is it 40%?
35. We did ask for, that was an emergency request, and I want to thank Chief Lee because he wrote a letter that also helped to substantiate the need for that money and helped us in getting that reimbursement.
So of the 225, we're getting roughly the 70 plus back.
70,000 to 75,000.
Okay, great. Anybody have questions for Superintendent Riley? Mr. Gleason.
I just have a question about the relationship you have with Aramac. It doesn't seem like there's any increase in the amount of money that you're paying to them at this point. Is that a safe assumption?
It's a 3-year contract with 2 additional 1-year options that we can exercise. The first 2 years, there was no increase. It stayed the same. This year, there was a small increase, not substantial at all.
Okay. And in general, how has that worked as opposed to hiring staff and using them? I mean, initially, we were told that they were going to come in and there would be some kind of training that would happen between our own DPW and your 3 maintenance people, if I recall. Is that all ongoing? Or is
It's
that-
definitely ongoing. There were some labor issues around different unions, different benefits, how that would work. What we've been doing is as we're hiring new employees when they retire or leave the district, we hire them with a new job description that says that they're allowed to work for both town and school buildings, and so we're going to slowly be doing that.
Okay, so that's kind of
It's in process.
a little muddy right now.
It's a little muddy.
Okay. And lastly, they provide materials as well?
They do.
Just
consumables,
cleaning supplies?
Cleaning supplies, paper towels, toilet paper, all plastic bags, all that type of stuff.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Jukusa?
Is there any possibility of spending more impact fees in the same way that they were spent to help with the safety features in the school?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have a 5-year capital plan that we're sticking to. The safety ask was obviously an emergency request to speed up what was a 3-year plan for that. The monies that you allocated fully funded that, and we're working on that to get it done this summer. If there's something additional we can do, we would certainly come back and ask.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Because there's a 35% reimbursement from the state for that.
Right.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's great.
there is, if you get approval, we needed to get an emergency approval. That can only happen once per year. They don't really want you to go through that process. They want you to go through the 5-year plan process, which is much more comprehensive, which we'll be doing probably a year from now.
Okay, thank you for doing that. I know that Middletown lost their impact fees because they did not spend them in a timely manner, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Because you have the 5-year plan, that I would assume went to help get the approval of the money as well, and you've been acting the 5-year plan relatively consistently as well.
Yeah, these monies were not included in the 5-year
Right.
plan, which is why we went through the emergency process. But having obviously worked with them and gone through that process, they knew it was comprehensive and well thought out. So I think that was on our side.
I'm going to ask you one tough, touchy subject that you're going to deal with on May 8th. There seems to be a lot of chatter about the freshman academy. Do you want to try to explain that in a nutshell? There's a lot of people who I don't want to say blindsided, but they certainly didn't see it coming, have concerns about the structure of it, the interaction of the freshmen with the upper class, and loss of study periods were the
So the
the
high
gist
school
of what I
can
got.
certainly do it more justice. I can give you kind of a nutshell. So we are running a pilot freshman academy this year. There are about 150 or so students in the current pilot. The purpose of a freshman academy is to really provide additional supports to 9th graders. The statistics and the research show that if a student doesn't do well in 9th grade, that is the risk factor for dropping out of high school or not being successful at the high school level. Many things are tied to that 9th grade research and data. So providing extra support for 9th graders behooves us as a district and supports those students in being successful, not just for 9th grade, but throughout their high school career. So the idea behind a freshman academy is to provide supports to make sure students are successful. And it's modeled, it's not a middle school model, but it has some of the components that we have in the middle school where we approach students in more of in a group with the same cohort of teachers so that they can discuss and share students and talk about ways to support a student in a more consistent fashion than when every student has a different set of 7 other teachers. So the idea behind Freshman Academy is to keep freshmen with the same cohort of teachers for their core content. That doesn't mean that some students won't go outside of that core, and they may, because we have students who are in accelerated math or may choose another accelerated course or an elective that takes them outside of that cohort of freshman teachers. But for the most part, they will share the same group of teachers throughout the year, which will provide support for those students as they go through their 9th grade year. So the as they looked at freshman academy models, one of the other things that we've been working towards is looking at how to improve the quality of what we do during learning centers. Our learning centers right now are very broad scoped. There are some really structured learning centers that support students all the way to some very, I'll say, looser learning centers. And we need to do a better job of making sure that students are getting their instructional time when they're in school with us during the school day. And that means every day, all day, from 7:15 to 1:55. And so we're trying to capitalize on that, and they're starting with the freshman class. That does not mean that all students will have 8 courses. Some students may not, and some will be structured into learning centers, and there will be opportunities for them to do different things during those learning centers. And again, I don't know the details of it yet. The high school has been working on that, and I'm sure they'll do a better job of explaining that portion of it. But kind of just in general, the big goal around Freshman Academy is to provide better supports for 9th graders, better systems for them and for communication with parents so that kids don't fall through the cracks in that crucial year.
Okay. And just to clarify, we didn't add 10 minutes to the school day, right? It still starts at 7:25?
7:25, I'm sorry, teacher starts. Sorry.
You just had a lot of little kids rolling
Sorry.
over their graves.
Sorry.
Mine doesn't leave the house until 7:15.
It's a small island. You can get there.
Anybody have questions on the budget? Mr. Kessin?
I have one question, it's probably to Chris. The added staffing, I think it's up 4. Is that for Freshman Academy?
8.7.
Well, there's some security guards that aren't
Right, 4
SROs.
security guards.
So I'm trying to figure out what's Freshman Academy related, and then, seeing you brought it up, the security guards, I don't.
Yeah, so no, the headcount increases are not related to Freshman Academy. There is a assistant principal that will be in charge of Freshman Academy, but we eliminated another assistant principal position, so that was just a swap. As far as what's driving our increases, if you do have your budget book that we put out.
I left mine home, but I brought the audit.
Oh, no, that doesn't help.
So I have Keith's book that he's so old he can't see.
There is a
I left my
tab
eyes at
called
home.
Staff salaries, and there's a page in there that actually walks you forward. It shows you all the changes to the staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I unfortunately left my eyeballs at home. So I've got a really big font on my computer right now. Anybody else have a question? Concerning the school budget? Ms. Pedro?
I have a question,
Or a comment?
but could, you did add a associate principal, 2 deans of students, department chair at the guidance department. You're a behavioral specialist, an RTI support and literary interventionist.
Those are all teaching positions, other than the associate principal. That's the only administrative position in that list. So those were, the dean positions were swap outs from FTEs within the budget. So if you look at the walk forward that Mr. Diro was talking about, again, it's in that staff and salaries tab. It kind of walks you through which positions were eliminated and which positions were added. That might help as you walk through it.
We're down 3 building administrators.
Right, so in total, we're down 3 administrators.
That was one at the middle school?
There was one eliminated at the middle school that was not in last year's budget, that is reflected in this year's budget, yes.
I guess you can call them teaching positions, but
Go a little further. One more? Yeah, that's everything.
Except it's sideways.
Can you rotate that a little bit? Thank you. Yeah, a little more. Little more.
Boy, you
Thank
are
you.
bad. Need some glasses.
I'm trying to help the folks in the audience, too.
On the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
The folks in the audience. I could see, and they're all squinting to see if they could see the numbers up there. Mr. Rayner and/or Fung, I just need to confirm the bottom line town appropriation to the school department, which in your budget is $32,846,238, which is minus the 142
Correct.
that is reflected in the PowerPoint that
Go to page
Superintendent
54.
Riley just went through.
Yes.
Our-
54?
So the town appropriation on page 54 is $32,846,238, which the PowerPoint that Superintendent Riley just had up would have been 142 million more than that, right?
Matches the number, if you look in the box,
Yeah.
Mr. Ray, where Mr.
Yeah, the
that's
38,700.
Little Compton revenue and all of that. So that's the total, the 38,783,579 is
So-
what matches our number after the 140.
In years past, what you did is you provisionally approved the town appropriation, but based on the discussions and the input we received last year, it's appropriate that we be also approving some aids that don't come to the town, go directly to the school, or some aids that go pass through the school. So you'll see that bottom line figure is total revenue. That includes the aid, the federal aid, state aid, the federal aid, and the miscellaneous tuitions. So you need to approve the 38,783,579 figure.
And the 32,846,238.
And 32,846,238. And they're not, they're not two separate numbers. The 38,783,579 is in addition to this.
That's essentially the
That's
bottom
adding-
line school budget for
With
the
Yeah,
year.
so you're not approving 70,000 or $1 million here. It's just, it's a two-step.
I would
process.
approve $70,000 if that was the school budget.
It's a two-step process.
Be a very small.
All in favor?
Very, yes, that'd be what, Prudence Island School, right? Are there any questions for?
I've got
yes.
one question,
Mr.
because
Kessler.
now we're going to include the Prudence Island money, I mean, the Little Compton money, the 1.199283, which is the Little Compton money. I don't know what the contract reads, but when they write us the check, or you send them the bill for the 1.1, if somebody drops out, do we still get all that money? Or is it a prorated number, and now, when I approve a number, you can ask for a shortfall amount back from the town?
It's an annual tuition per student. It's charged, the contract's written so that it's charged quarterly, and if a student attends one day in the quarter, we get the full quarterly tuition.
But if they don't attend, the understanding is you won't come to this council and look for that revenue shortfall, correct?
Oh, no.
We haven't
No,
before.
we've never done that. We wouldn't do that.
Well,
It's like any other.
state aid happens that way, so I was just wondering if Little Compton aid went that way, you know?
Well, state aid is a fixed number. Little Compton could fluctuate.
It could go up, it could go down.
It could go up. Somebody
I
might leave
understand that.
Bishop staying or someplace like that and come
I'm
into.
just asking.
Yep. So can I have a motion to provisionally approve the town appropriation to the school department at $32,846,238?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. And then I need a motion to provisionally approve the total school department budget at $38,783,579.
Second. Yes.
Any further discussion or questions on that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Thank you, folks, very much.
Thank you. Do you want us to do our capital, or do you want to hold our capital until capital?
This would allow them to complete their presentation.
And not have to
one
come back tomorrow night?
Not have to come back tomorrow.
Oh, can't we have them back?
I guess
I'll be
so.
back anyway.
Yeah.
I won't have to make
Well,
Chris come back
All
tomorrow.
right. I'll ask one, I made a small little request about a month and a half ago, brought to me by a couple of second graders at
Is this
at
gonna be his
Melville.
thank you?
Yes. So have they received their soccer goal yet?
Yes, they have.
Okay, good. We can do the capital goal, the capital tonight, so Chris doesn't have to come back. Otherwise, he'd be punished. You do have it? Okay, good. Thank you for the stack
Did you
of...
see Lisa raise her hand? Wait a minute, I didn't get anything.
You didn't invite the right person to come read. Chief Lee could get you a soccer goal.
What can you give us, Chief Lee?
All right, school capital, which is on page what?
3.
3 on, well, no, deep in our budget.
In our budget, I don't
Oh.
see any money being required for,
It's not
Correct.
in the,
it's not in the fold-out.
I thought it was
No,
in the...
because what I'm requesting this year is that you request that the school fund their school capital with their capital surplus.
Yes.
So if you look at the
It's in the...
page 56, in the expenditure summary, towards the bottom, you'll see school capital, 0.
I thought we were looking in the school budget book.
Yes, look in the school department budget.
Yeah, it's on the
Contract,
capital page.
budget book.
Right, if you go to our budget book after the, where it says facilities capital.
Liz, you said that was
No,
straight?
it's the school budget book,
Yeah, but why isn't it in,
because they're funding their own capital.
It's right there.
okay?
So,
Oh, you don't have that. So I'll make my pitch and then you can,
Well, I know they got a surplus.
That's why they're funding their own capital. And they're still not spending it all.
Chris, pick a page for me, because I can't remember where it is.
3.
It's coming up.
yep, go back to, there you go.
So it's actually 55. That's the page I'm looking for.
Oh, you're looking for the PDF page.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you, I didn't bring my eyeballs, so that book is
No.
no good to me.
You gotta use that.
Okay, so what we're here showing you tonight in our budget book is the capital budget request that was approved by our school committee. We fully recognize it's not the budget request that's included in the town administrator's budget, but we wanted to make sure we at least presented what we had gone through. And of course, Mr. Rayner had spoken to us ahead of time, and we're not surprised by what's included in his budget. Our school committee approved capital plan. As you know, we have a 5-year capital plan. 3 years are done. We were looking to have the town fund year 4 for $604,000, and then we were proposing to use fund surplus to complete year 5 at the same time and complete our 5-year plan 1 year early and get a head start on our next 5-year plan with the state of Rhode Island. The projects that were included there were some additional asbestos tile replacements, a partial roof replacement at the high school, and the final piece of Hathaway's roof being replaced, so that roof would be 100% new when that was done. All of the projects combined were $1,282,325. The housing aid reimbursement that would come back to the town, which is 35%, in some cases a little bit higher. There were bonuses for asbestos abatement, those type of things, was $450,014 for a net cost of $832,311. My understanding is the budget before you tonight has us, the school department, funding our own capital, and that would be for our year 4 projects.
So that would be the 604, 150 initially?
Correct, yes.
And then whatever the reimbursement is? Okay.
Correct. That'd be, yes, 212,000 in reimbursement.
And technically, because this is coming out of your surplus, it's not a budgeted item, do we have to approve their capital?
I'm asking the council to request, make it formal, request the school to fund their capital
Okay,
via their capital fund surplus.
okay.
And the number is, what did you say it was?
Well, the total budget they're going to spend this year will be $1,282,325.
That was our original budget if the town provided 1 year and we provided 1 year.
Okay.
But if that's not the case, then we would only pay for 1 year, the 604.
Okay, so you're just going to do the 604 and then do the 5th year in the 5th year? Okay.
So you're going to do the 604
604, 150, yes.
150, but, wait a minute.
No.
But you're not getting any reimbursements.
The town would get the reimbursement.
The town gets which reimbursement? The 450?
No, the 450 would be if we did both years. If you look up above, the first two projects total about $212,000. That's what the town would get.
Oh, I see. The 11.7 and the 209.53? Correct, okay. So what we have to do is a little bit of math and do the two lines, sort of like we did before. We have to approve the total budget with those added in? No?
No.
The total, not budget, the total capital with those added in? No, just the 604, 150?
We don't have to really approve anything, we just have to
Direct them to use their own capital.
yes.
Right, okay. So I'll make that motion for the school department to fund their own capital projects at $604,150.
Is that the correct number, Chris, right?
Yeah.
604, 150, okay.
Second.
Mr.
Mr.
President.
Wojciechowski, how are you?
Fine, thank you. John Wojciechowski, 8 Eiler Drive. I fully appreciate the predicament that you all are in this year, but I just want to kind of make the point and get it on record that I think over the last 5 years, between our investments in our facilities and your support over the last 4 years, that we have been still not quite at the level that Rhode Island Department of Education recommends municipalities spend every year on maintaining their buildings. The rule of thumb that we're told by RIDE is about $3 a square foot. We probably have been right around $2. It's been okay. We've addressed the major, high priority issues. We had boilers that were 50 years old. We had to replace them, things like that. So we've been getting by. But my concern is, if we start peeling back and start getting down to $1 a square foot, I question how good of stewards we are all being to our buildings if we're going down to $1 a square foot for maintenance. So just want to throw that out there, put it on the record. Obviously, you're wrestling with a tough issue this year with revenue and expenditure, so I fully appreciate where you're sitting tonight, but I just wanted to make that point that, as Mr. Fitzmaurice mentioned about roads, it's kind of the same story with our buildings, so just food for thought. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Mr. Shears, how are you?
I just have a short comment. In regards to the buildings, we have close to about 450,000 square foot of buildings in our school system. And last year, the cost for replacement was somewhere around $375 a square foot. This year, 406, rounded off. That would be $180 million to replace those buildings. Next year, the projection right now is about $460 a square foot. Where I'm going with this is that if we don't keep an adequate amount for maintenance and rejuvenation in our existing buildings, we're going to have a problem as bad as what you're fearing with the roads, if not worse. And so consequently, as Mr. Wojciechowski mentioned, the percentages in that, we're not really going up to where we really should be on the maintenance. We're holding it together as best as we can. But it's really a challenge, and would appreciate whatever you can do on it, but wanted to bring you up to date. That's what we're dealing with here in the town.
Thank you, Mr. Shears. Agreed. Is there the ability within your total fund balance to fund all of these projects this year? No. Okay. Okay. So the motion is to request that the school department utilize their capital surplus to fund the $604,150 for this year. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you both. And Chris, you can stay home tomorrow night. Who is next on our list? The Battle of the Chiefs. The Police Department wins.
Police Department, page 37.
Hit the wrong button.
Something I said.
Thirty-seven. 37 starts the Police Department.
Okay, page 37, we begin the expenditures for the Police Department. Some takeaways here. I'm projecting 2% raises for department heads. The police, in their contract, they get a 2% raise. We have projected that into this current budget. You will see some salary decreases, some total salary decreases. Those are due to retirements and hiring of new personnel that come in at a lower wage. And that'll affect some other things too. For instance, the longevity, which decreases by 11%. So for salaries, we're looking at a 0.75% increase in salaries for the police department to $3,006,501. Benefits, for the same reasons, we're looking at a decrease in benefits total year over year by 0.96% at $411,053. So the total salaries and benefits for the police department remains essentially flatline. You have a negative 0.01% at $5,417,554. When we get into police operations, there's a couple takeaways here. Mostly everything is either flatlined or decreased, with the exception radio. That $21,000 represents a contractual commitment to Motorola, so that's a fixed number, 21,000. That goes up 49.35% over last year, and then that will bring our total operation increase to. I do want to make one more comment. I'm sorry. Because we project, we don't know exactly what it will cost to heat the new building. It is a bigger building with a conventional heating system. So we're projecting a slight increase, 20%, but to $3,000 for heat over the $2,500 that we already projected for the previous year. Continuing education, we kept that level funded. It's a big number, 24,000, but that by law we have to provide continuing education opportunities to the police force. So you have an increase of 19% in operations to $554,177, which brings the police budget up 1.49% to $5,971,731.
So we'll start with the police department proper. Does anybody have any questions on the police department budget? Mr. Kessler?
I do. And only because I just got enlightened just now. There was a savings over salaries because of most senior people leaving.
Yeah, you have senior people leaving, and there's three things actually going on. There's and I failed to mention that. You have senior people leaving, so senior salaries are being replaced by people that come in at a lower rate. And then the third thing is we are proposing that we delay hire how many? 2 officers for 6 months.
Okay, so we dropped $60,000 in salaries in the lieutenant line, but yet I don't see that on the bottom. I don't see that on the bottom line.
It's shifted to the accreditation.
The second thing is that the longevity went away, and I also don't see that savings in the bottom line.
That goes into there's a large increase in the patrols, 731. So you have an increase of almost $90,000
Okay,
in the patrol line.
thank you very much. When we move on to page 38, and I don't know whether I want to go there. I guess I want to go there because I always take things out of order, right? So bear with me a moment. What I'm concerned about on this particular page, on page 38, and it's across the board all over the town, is I say a $50,000 increase in our electricity, and I don't understand why we're up $50,000. And based on the conversation I had last night with you, Mr. Rayner, the actuals we had for 217 are almost $1,000 over what's adopted for 18 and what's being adopted for 19 with a bigger building. So my question is, over the whole town, we see a $50,000 increase. Can you enlighten me why that's there?
We're talking total, or we're
Total,
talking about
it's-
the electricity line?
Electricity, but it's total, the $50,000 is across the board, yet this particular,
One remains the same.
I see inconsistency in this building seems like it's underfunded, number
This-
one. And number two, I don't understand the $50,000 increase.
With respect to this line, we're expecting a savings because there's energy efficient modifications going into the new building, so we projected a savings in electricity in that new building. In other areas across town where we have enacted or implemented energy savings, you have to pay for those energy savings, and those will be paid for in within your electric bill. So for instance, in, let's say, Town Hall, when we implement the energy savings project in Town Hall, that's not really free. You do get some rebates from National Grid, but it goes on your electric bill, so it's paid for in your electric bill over 5 years, and then it drops off.
So that could be the $50,000 increase we're seeing?
That is part of the increase, and then there's some areas where we're just being conservative and we're looking at past projections. You have, sometimes, for instance, you'll look at a building 2 years ago, it was $8,000-9,000 higher than it is last year. We're just trying to be very conservative and not underfund those lines.
The second thing is, this is the only department I see a drop in the fuel cost. It's not consistent across all departments. And it looks and it sounded like we're adding, and it sounds like we're adding patrols, but yet the fuel's down.
It's down by $2,000. That's correct. I've worked extensively with each department head. Chief Lee was comfortable with this number.
Okay.
I don't think he likes it, but he's comfortable with the number.
He didn't like my question last night either.
Do you have the actual for the first 6 months?
No, not yet.
Okay. And when does our contract run out with them? We're still using Buckley? Is that who we're using? Who are we using for our fuel now?
Brian, do you know who we're using for our fuel?
We use Superior.
Superior? And how long is that contract for?
1 year contract.
Okay.
We do it through Newport Communities, or Tiverton, Bristol, Public Works, Enforcement, we do it on Newport, all the same.
Okay.
The third thing that I didn't particularly care about the police budget is I see a $60,000 cost. We're leasing furniture.
This is...
Well, it's the note that's on the page.
Right.
Is there a note?
It says furniture, 19 lease. I thought that furniture was included in the $10 million bond, and there was a $60,000 savings that we could take out of this budget and spend somewhere else.
No, the furniture was not in the police station bond. There were two things that the IT was severely underfunded, and there was no furniture. And if you go back to the original budget book for that project.
I know most of the alterations or changes were plus-ups on the cost. I didn't understand that it was the furniture, and what I saw in last night's expenditures was $10,000 in TV and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so you see that's for the IT part.
But this is $70,000 between last night's 2 televisions at B&H Photo and 9 Wi-Fis that were paid in this current year budget by expense, plus this $60,000 is $70,000 that's ending up in budgets that I thought was part of my $10 million bond that we had approved. I didn't realize we didn't have a building with furniture.
Neither did I. This is what was approved.
I wonder if the residents knew that it was going to be an unfurnished building.
Well, not completely unfurnished, partially unfurnished. It's a larger building. We are recycling some of the furniture.
$60,000, I'd like to have that in my house. But I just trying to understand some of the numbers, and it is what it be. I'm ready to go wherever you need to go. I'm done with my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Anybody else have any questions on the police department proper budget? Ms. Bader?
Thank you. So, I'm looking at the dreaded overtime.
Oh, I forgot that one.
So, I'm trying to understand the difference between overtime, temporary general, and overtime personnel shortage.
Good evening.
Evening, Chief.
Personnel shortage overtime is replacement overtime. General overtime would be extended tours, other assignments that run late. So they're separated by function. So the
Okay.
overtime account used to just be the total, and we broke it up starting in last year's budget.
All
So
right.
you get a clearer picture of what is
Yep.
actually being spent.
I appreciate that.
So if there's a car accident
So-
at 2 o'clock, then it carries over to 4
All
o'clock
right, so
that hour.
now I understand personnel shortage. So, which leads me to, because as was requested earlier, we're supposed to be looking for savings, and so I understand that the harbor master, when he does his thing in the summertime, he comes off his regular personnel, and you have to fill that position. And that's that's part of that overtime, correct?
Part of the harbor master, yes.
Because when he's harbor master in the summer, he's not a patrolman.
Right, he's a
or
regular
not
patrol,
as
yes.
Officer
Yes.
Burns anymore, he's harbor master Burns.
Correct.
So now you have to take other people and use them at overtime to make up for the position that you lost when he's harbor master.
Correct.
Okay. So my question and my proposal is that, and this is nothing against Officer Burns, he's, good guy, I saw him the other night at the comedy show. Why don't you get a harbor master that's a part-time employee that can just come in, or some retired captain or something, that can be the harbor master, and so that will truly reflect. Let's see, I'm jumping, like Paul, I'm sitting next to Paul, so I'm inheriting some of those things. I'm going to jump to page 41, because the harbor master salary is $20,000, but that's not really the harbor master salary, because That's what he gets, but you're taking overtime to fill that position. So really, you can bump that up. Whereas if you had a harbor master that just came in for the summer, that was a retired person, and you left Officer Burns in his position, then that would save overtime.
That would be subject to negotiations with the union.
Oh, the second dreaded.
So,
Oh.
can I ask, on the same vein, can we backfill some of those hours with Rich and Matty while they're not being SROs?
They are assigned to patrol, but during the school season,
Right.
they earn a lot of comp time for the night events. They don't put in overtime, so they're using time also.
Okay.
So they do backfill during the summer.
So it's not, Steve's a lieutenant now, right?
Sergeant.
He's a sergeant, okay. Sergeant Burns'
Sergeant Burns.
change
Officer Burns.
is not 100% overtime compensated, it's partially.
Partially.
Okay. And to make
Well-
that change, we'd have to work that out in 3 years, or 2 years.
I would like to see a change in that, because it's actually costing us more. Plus, he has a second person on the boat with him, doesn't he?
That's what it looks like.
Yes, there's a second person on the boat.
And is
The
it
boat's a law enforcement boat.
Right.
They made arrests last year. A civilian couldn't do that.
No,
You
so
know, boating under influence, I mean, as you know, Liz, you're a boater, it is
Right.
a concern for us. We do enforcement activity, and those $1,000, a couple of $1,000 in fines is all law enforcement activity on the boat. They're also our primary backup to Prudence Island during the summer, which people don't realize. The boat actually goes over there and takes calls when the officer's not available. That two-person boat responds there for those residents. So there's police services by the boat besides just harbor master civilian services. This has come up before, whether we would change the model. You know, that's something, again, it's tied up in negotiation. It would be.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So, but it's not, Sergeant Burns isn't, it's not two people all the time, it's two people when
It's not two people all the
when it's
time, but
busy, like a
when
4th
he's
of
doing
July
enforcement
weekend.
activity, it's
Yeah.
two people.
Yeah. Busy weekends.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if he's just out checking like the
So
mooring
it's
field,
really- so
and
it's-
he's
yeah.
just going out generally by himself.
So I guess that
to do that stuff.
my point is really the, the harbor master position. I mean, you yourself, you're a retired from somewhere else, and you came here to, I mean, there's got to be people out there that would do this for the summer that would love to do it, and you can still get your law enforcement,
You would have to
Yes,
make that change in 2 years.
You'd have to get it, yes, changed. But other
Okay.
municipalities
Well,
do
let's
that
keep-
model.
Let's keep that in mind in 2 years, because I think it would save money. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will-
Thank you for considering.
Any other questions for Chief Lee? Mr. Casson?
Just one more. So we have all these vehicle leases, and I guess it's not a question to Chief Lee because it's in his budget, but we're spending $220,553 in total leases against what value of the original purchases, I guess is what I'd like to know. Because this seems like an awful lot of money that we could borrow for $220,000 if it was outside the budget and yet part of a capital plan. As this budget tightens down, and we know it's gonna, if we try to continue services and going back to have DPW do the $800,000 in roads, I don't know whether the leases in the fire and the police, and I'll just state this now because I looked at that in police, if we can somehow, because when I asked for the white paper over a year ago, I was told there wasn't one, but in the process of that discussion, we got, I think, answers where we were paying 1% more for leases. And 1% more for leases ends up being a lot of money when you think that the total lease program is approaching $500,000. So maybe it's not for this budget, maybe it's for next budget, but this is a lot of money. And I don't know how to address it right at the moment, but the second thing is I think I saw that the leases weren't consistent across in the lease section of this, where we paid $20,000, and I'm just going to use a round number. For a vehicle, we were up $500 on the second-year lease, and I didn't understand that. I thought we would have our lease prices would have been leveled for the 5 years that we were renting the cars.
I couldn't answer the question.
Yeah,
on
I know you.
Actual, I have to refer to Fung.
You'd have to look at the lease agreement, but the discussion I'm trying to instill is maybe next year we stop doing this lease and do a buyout in a bond such that we actually can recoup some of this $500,000 in all the leases.
Well, this was
Not take away the cars, not take away the replacement program.
The municipal leasing was a strategy by the former finance director,
Yeah,
so that we could get an increased number of vehicles because the police fleet was in such bad condition. So we switched to that municipal leasing program.
And it's costing us a little bit more money.
It costs us a little bit more money over the price of the car. But if we could somehow pay off these leases and go back to the regular program where we bought 2 cars every year, I'd be perfectly happy with that.
I'm not talking about trying to take away cars. I'm trying to say, as this money tightens on the revenue coming in, can we buy out these leases and turn them into what you just said?
Yeah,
2
I'd have
cars
to
a year.
refer to Fung on the lease. I'm not sure, sir.
I think that's a great project for our new finance director.
It's got to be something for somebody, because it ends up being quite a bit of money. And if we're paying, $50,000 extra on the $500,000 leases or whatever, we want to start fixing it.
$5,000.
Whatever, close enough.
Wow.
Know what the number is at least.
Right. If it's 1% over $500,000, it's $5,000.
Yep. And it might be 488, it could be 344.
Either way.
Right.
Okay.
Because the other thing I have a real hard problem with is leasing furniture.
Well, remember, the term lease is not, we have the car for 3 years and then it goes back.
But furniture.
It's financing the car.
But leasing furniture doesn't have the life expectancy of a fire truck, of the roads that we put down when we pay a 20-year lease.
It's leased.
Again, that's why they did it for the
leased to own.
20-year. They took it out of the 20-year
It's
payoff
financing.
because the item doesn't last over 20 years, the furniture. This was how it's explained to me. I didn't agree with this either. This was done, it was voted on, approved here to go with that budget, and it was zero was the furniture. But it's explained to me by our former finance director that you don't want to borrow that money over the 20 years term, like say for the $10 million.
Right. I understand that.
So that's why it was done. So, I mean, I don't think we agreed to it.
I thought I bought a completed building at $10 million.
Yep.
I'm confused, I get it.
You bought a completed building, you didn't buy a furnished
Yeah, you
completed
bought a
building.
I didn't buy a
building.
furnished completed building.
There you go.
Right.
Are radios included in the new building?
Yes.
Yes.
The dispatch system, yes.
I
Oh,
guess
I get it.
The radios are in the municipal, are in the lease here in the budget, are being replaced now.
No, the hard in the building,
Yes.
dispatch
Yes.
radios are
Yes.
That
in.
is included.
Yes, that is
That's
included.
the Motorola.
So we'll see an up in this maintenance on the Motorola contract again?
No,
No,
this-
these are for the
Those are the new radios.
This is for the new building. That Motorola lease is a service agreement.
Right.
So anything goes wrong with those, the whole communication system, plus the upgrades. We're buying, it's like a computer. It's like we're buying multiple computers for this whole dispatch system.
Yep.
And that is what, that's a service agreement from Motorola. We pay $14,061 now. It's going to be about $21,000 for the new building, which we, brand new equipment and the increased cost of the equipment and more dispatch stations.
I'm happy. I know more than I had. Thank you very much.
I just want to clarify a couple things. I don't want the impression to be left with our police union members that we consider them dreaded in any way. I believe they're very much serving the town in a positive way, so I want to make that clear. Secondly, I know that you're being questioned about the leasing of the vehicles, and I also know that you've really tried to tighten belts and have vehicles that frankly don't meet what your standards would be, and you were locked into that by a prior finance director, and that is not within your control. I want to just underline that, highlight that fact. And also, I want to say that it's amazing what you've been able to do, chiefly, because we are the only police department in the state, are we not, that does not offer defined benefits to our new hires. Is that true?
That's correct.
And because we are the only town in that situation, it makes it very hard for us to keep people. They frankly just would get a better deal potentially. So I think that you are dealing with some external situations that you don't have control over, and I just want to again underline and highlight that to make sure that people understand that our police department is being run quite well. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate it.
I don't agree with that. I don't, well, not...
Don't you agree with Ms. Pedro?
I don't agree with that we're losing people. I just had a conversation with
Fact is, we are.
We just
We're
lost
losing
the
because of-
second
yeah.
and third in command.
Well, I had some other information.
We just had an officer leave to go to the Warwick Police Department 2 weeks ago, one of our brand-new officers.
Right,
That's the
right.
reason your overtime's for the...
Other police departments have people leave too.
Oh, yes,
It's not
yes,
like
they
this
do.
is the
Yeah.
only police department that has
No,
people leaving.
they do, and some people
Okay.
just want to go to a bigger agency.
That's
Chief, I
right,
hate
right,
to
right.
cut you
There are
off, but
different
we're here to
reasons for
discuss the
people
budget, not the operation and who's
Right,
going where.
well,
Let's
you
just
allowed
all
levy,
right,
yeah,
all
right.
right, stop. Let's just stop. Budget.
I'm good.
Any other questions on the budget? Do I have a motion to provisionally approve the police department proper budget
So moved.
at I gotta get a,
$5 million.
at $5,971,731.
So moved.
Is there a second for discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Breed, you have a question? This is just for the police department, not Harbor Master, Prudence Island, or anything else.
I'm sorry.
We'll get, see. Knowing that you're on the Harbor Commission, that's why I threw that one out there. We'll be up to that in a minute. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to ask what the head count difference, I think I understand it to be -2.
Minus
This
2 for
budget?
6 months. Well,
Minus
minus
2
3
for
now.
6 months.
And part of that is attrition, and part is because the academy's only come, what, twice a year, Chief?
Twice a year.
So,
It's actually, I think, -4.
minus 4 right now?
It's -4 right now, but this budget is written for
This-
-4 or
No,
-2?
this budget is written for two delayed hires.
So,
And the delay is for 6 months,
We're projecting 6 months, yes.
so a net 1.
And we're allowed 2 cross hires a year? Or from other towns, not,
We could,
If-
yeah, we could advertise it. We've discussed that, sir.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So the motion is to provisionally approve the police department budget at $5,971,731. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Next up, we have Prudence Island Public Safety.
Page 39.
Which is at $112,304, which includes wages for Glenn himself, and then also some extra money for backup overtime or temporary help.
Correct. This is for
Chief,
the-
do you want to speak to that real quick for us? Thank you.
I did ask for an increase in this line item for having a reserve officer on the island. As we know, we have one officer living over there. There's some family concerns and hasn't been over there as much. We've had to adjust his schedule. We have a full-time retired police chief from New Hampshire who is now in residence there, and I've supported him by having him attend the academy, and I intend to hire him as a reserve. So if there's an issue on the island, we could call him out from his home and he'd just get paid an hourly rate. But it's having somebody there for the residents. So I think we did increase under that category. So that's not all overtime for Glenn. It actually includes the money for the reserve officer.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have questions on that? Mr. Gleason?
If we're staying with the 2% raise, which seems to be across the board here, are we shortchanging?
Glenn's not.
Glenn's in a different union.
He's in the PMEA.
So
He's not in the police department union.
they're contractual.
That's his contractual increase in his union. He's not in the regular, he's a Prudence Island Public Safety Officer, he's not part of the IBPO.
So he's technically in the PMEA. Any other questions on the Prudence Island budget? If none, do I have a motion to provisionally approve at $112,340?
Motion to approve.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Animal control, Liz's budget is $114,794, which includes, is the, where am I looking at? I thought we had, there it is, shelter operations, that's what I was missing.
Correct.
So that's flat from year over year?
It's a contract.
The contract is flat, okay. Motion to provisionally approve the animal control budget at $114,794.
One question.
And a second for discussion, hang on.
Second.
Thank you, David. Go ahead.
So we have a wage increase from 37 to 42 at 13.4%. Can somebody help me why we have that large increase?
She has a step increase, and then, of course, the 2.5% raise.
So
And her hours,
we
she
just
goes to
didn't
40 hours
show this
also.
under a longevity. Everybody
Yeah.
else is under a longevity. We missed that as a...
Longevity is totally different.
She's not longevity until over 10 years.
So
She's
it's a
not
step,
longevity.
it's a step
Yeah,
increase.
so
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
And David, I'm sorry, Mr. Gleason, did you have a question?
I had the same question.
Okay.
So, step increase, but in her case, she receives a 2.5% increase. Is that because she's in a different union?
She's also
Correct.
in PMEA.
So PMEA is 2.5 here and 1.9 on Prudence?
No, no.
No,
I don't quite understand.
I think last year's number is incorrect.
Sorry?
Last year's number is not correct for Prudence.
So he got the right percentage, but
Right.
the formula might be off.
The formula, there's something wrong with the formula, but the pay is reflected there is correct pay.
Correct.
Okay. So, provisional approval of the animal control officer budget at $114,794. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have the harbor master at $83,680. Mr. Grieve.
Tom Grieve, 110 Thayer Drive. I wanted to talk about the suspension of the boat and motor replacement fund in this. Back in September of 2014, when we raised or actually imposed mooring fees for the first time on the residents, the council guaranteed the residents that that mooring fee would be used only for the harbor and nothing else. Mr. Seveny was the president. I can remember his words exactly saying that this would be fenced off for the harbor and would never go into the general fund. Well, in this budget, we're seeing $17,000 or so go into the general fund. Now, that's the council's prerogative to do that, and I'm not saying it's not, but I want you to understand the conditions under which you're doing it, because the residents of the town were told that whatever they were paying in mooring fees would stay with the with the harbor. And the other part is, you've seen the value of the boat and motor replacement fund. We had $55,000 in that fund, and last year we used 32 of it to replace the motors. It did not impact the budget, which I assume Mr. Rayner's thankful for. The replacement of that $32,000 will take at least 2 years under this scenario to replace it, should anything happen. And there are 2 boats out there now, not just one. So that's something I'm asking the council to think about hard before you pass this budget, because I think we had a contract with the people, even though, as I said, you can certainly change it if you wish.
What do we believe that value is? Do we think it's 29,059?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I just took the $10,000 from the fines, backed that off last year's revenues, and said if we had a reserve of 39,054, then
All right,
it should be 29,054.
You get to another question that I was going to bring up later on page 69 and 70 when they come up, but in neither the audit nor this budget is the rest of the boat and motor fund, the 55,000 minus the 32 shown. And I'm not sure where that is or what's happened to it, but we ought to be keeping track of that as well.
Chief or Fung?
Fung has the total. She showed up in
Yeah, it's rolled up in the special revenue fund.
That's okay.
Okay.
That goes along with the fact that we don't have enough digits to have enough accounts, so it's stuck in a fund with everything else.
Yeah, that is all under the department reserve. So in that fund, there are other reserves such as canvassing, election, and injured on duty and stuff like that.
Okay.
So among other things.
So it's buried into a catch-all of reserve funds. Because our accounting software doesn't have enough.
We just want to make sure and maybe I need to have a conversation with Fung. We need to keep track of that so the Harbor Commission knows as well in terms of our recommendations as to what to do with the money, if so. Anyway, thank you very much. That was the point I wanted to make on the harbor.
So your rough thought process is we have 1,000 moorings and $100 a wax, so it's about a $100,000 budget?
And it's a lot more complicated than that, because you got residents, you got non-residents, you got commercial. But yes, basically you're correct.
In the ballpark, just general numbers, okay.
Yes.
So basically, if you take the 101K revenue and minus the 83,680 expenses, we have the 16,320 that you want put towards the reserve.
In the boat and motor fund rather than to the general fund.
To put it in the general fund where it disappears.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't disappear, it gets utilized.
Well, yeah.
Right, but it doesn't get utilized towards the boat that where it was intended.
Well,
So why is it?
we could possibly accomplish this 2 ways. One, we could put it back in there, which we would have to find $17,124, whatever that number is, in savings.
There is actually in the budget $25,000 going into the general fund, so.
Right.
Part of that came from.
Or we could pass it as is with a motion in the budget that says if we are over whatever our surplus is, we could fund it through any surplus that may be anticipated throughout the entire budget. But
We may have additional moorings going in Hinkley.
We get 28, yeah.
So those 28 moorings are going to be additional
Revenue.
and if they do come in, we could dedicate however you phrase it.
well, that would be into a surplus, yeah.
But that means that there's 28 more on top of the 16,340 if Ms. Pedro did her numbers right, because I started out at
320.
320. I started out at 29,060, 054.
Well, the revenue line
I
item,
just took the revenue and minus the expenses. It's pretty
Okay.
easy. And it's funny because we talked about this, because I have my notes, September 22, 2014. And this was under the new revenue committee. This was one of the things that was proposed by the new revenue committee. to take that was the sell on the mooring fees, because I was like not liking mooring fees.
I remember
And
that.
you all said to me, this will help to pay for the boat.
So the total revenue with fines is 101,000.
Right.
Minus the 83 would get us to more 17,320, right?
16,320. Well, wait a minute. Oh, 17, yeah. I did my math wrong.
Okay.
You're right.
So we would have to find some place in the budget to carve $17,320 out to refund that spot.
It's pretty easy, Mr. President. 2 weeks ago, I was told there was no contingency in this budget. I found a $50,000 contingency on page...
In fact, it's in the expenditure summary page.
The $50,000 to pay for the
To address
1213
that.
warrant?
Nope.
No.
There's another $50,000, Mr. President.
We had put in, from the time that we had talked about that contingency fund, as I've been telling the council, there's significant soil remediation issues at the new site. I don't know what that cost is going to be yet.
I gotta tell you, I'm thinking that's gotta come out of the $10 million.
That's what that contingency.
You mean the police site?
The police site, yes.
We can provisionally approve and change, we can ask the administration and Chief Lee to work to find, and if we want to, when we get into the other expenditures, if you wanted to make a motion to move that in there, we can do that as we look at it. Or we can take, as Mr. Grebe suggested, take that $25,000 that we're earmarking for the general fund out. So, there's not a lot of easy decisions in this budget. There's not a lot of flexibility.
Well, it's just like going back on the Prudence Island. I mean, this is no different than the Prudence Island. We set a policy in 2014. This council never changed the suspension for 1 year of this revision of this boat, and I'm afraid we're going to have a motor that needs replaced for some reason on one of the boats, and the money's not going to be there. And then you're into a safety response issue, and I think that the money that was earmarked should stay there. And if it has to come out of the contingency that's on page 56, then it's got to come out of the contingency on page 56 to balance this budget. We made a motion for us to own this budget last night, and I think it's this council that's got to find the money, and the money's in that contingency. There's no footnote under that page on page 56 that contingency is for soil remediation.
Which we haven't gotten there yet.
There's no footnote, Mr. President, on page 56, like there is for the suspend for 1 year for the reserve.
Ms. Fujikusa?
Mr. President, I believe the 2012-2013 warrant was decided to be acted upon by having the $50,000 per year put in, if you recall. And I'm just wondering at what point I think that original motion was to not have it be a set figure, but instead be a 50% amount of whatever surplus there was, to give us the flexibility to handle the kind of problems that might come up. And I would suggest that we look at making a motion to have that $50,000 hard number be something that can be flexible and include a cost such as this one.
Wait a minute.
And when can we, I guess my question would be, when could we make that motion? And tie it in with this issue here.
All right.
Mr. President?
Hang on.
Wait, I asked him a question.
We have 25 grand going into OPEB. The CIP fund balance is to pay down the 1213 warrant. correct?
Right.
Is that the way, that's the way you have it listed in here?
And the
And then
contingency.
20,251 going into the fund balance, earmarked for the fund balance. And then a contingency of $50,000, which could be for the police station, or it could be for an air conditioning unit blow-up. I would feel more comfortable leaving the contingency at $50,000, and then once we got the police station open, if we haven't utilized that, we could make a transfer throughout the year back into the Harbor Master Fund. Is that, you follow along with that one, Mr. Rayner?
Do.
I got a nod from Fung, so she got it. Mr. Fitzmaurice, question?
Not a question, but an observation. Thank you, Mr. President. When the people passed the $10 million bond for the new police station, that's the absolute limit of cost that can be expended without going back to the people for an additional vote. There's a court case, I think South Kingston, on this matter. It too is a police station, but that's the limit. You can't add money to this project as it goes forward for whatever reason.
We'll have a discussion about the dirt. I think that's some contractor error and not just bad dirt.
I can tell you right now that if they find bad dirt, it's a plus up on a contract.
Mm-hmm. But not necessarily for what the bad dirt is. All right, let's move back to Harbor Master. It would be my preference, and this is just my preference, that we leave the $50,000 where it is as contingency. And then once everything has, the dust has settled, so to speak, at the police station, to make a budget adjustment throughout the year to move it within, not change the bottom line budget, but to move it out of the contingency and back to the Harbor Master if that money is available at that point in time, come October 1st-ish. And then leave the Harbor Master budget where it is, which I have now lost.
Page 41.
Page 41.
Thank you.
83,680.
Mr. President, may I amend that motion?
I didn't make a motion, but go ahead and you can make any motion you'd like. I just gave my opinion.
Because I still feel that the $50,000 that we have to set aside to pay off the warrant is paying off something that isn't necessarily, well, is not hurting the town, and that we could use it to fund this item. But I'm not sure at what point we can discuss that.
I would bring it up when we go back into the other expenditures. When we get to that point where we approve those other expenditures, going through those line items.
So I would move that,
That would be tomorrow night, because we're not discussing the other expenditures at this point in time.
right. So I would move that this item be considered.
We can provisionally approve this budget at $83,680.
Okay, okay.
And then if you wanted to make a motion tomorrow night to take the $50,000 down to $33,000, I'm just
For
rounding
this
down.
item. Okay. So,
You could do it then, so.
So moved.
So the motion would be to provisionally approve the Harbor Master budget at $83,680, with the caveat that as we go through this budget, we're going to look for other areas to fund that $17,320 differential.
Yes.
So that is your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the Harbor Master? Mr. Gleason?
I would agree with Mr. Grieve that what the public was sold is not represented here, and I would support it as presented. If we know that we're pretty sure that we're going to open up 24, 28 moorings, then why don't we earmark that money for a future contingency fund as opposed to stealing from this fund? You know, essentially, I just don't like going back on what we've told people. I was on that revenue committee, and I remember the conversation. And that's what happens here, is after a period of time, we tend to forget things that we've said. And when you do remember them, you should, represent it as it was spoken back then, so.
So tomorrow evening, we have 3 line items that you could choose from. Contingency, 213, the CPI fund payback, or, well, there's OPEB, and then there's general revenue. So there's about $150,000.
And I will choose from one of those tomorrow night.
There's much.
I won't be voting.
There's other places that you may want to find $17,000 to cut. So we can't cut it out of the Harbor Master budget tonight and put it into the Harbor Master budget. So if we just approve this now, we can fix it tomorrow night, if that makes sense to everybody. Since I promised we would be out of here by 9, and it's now 9:15.
There is much.
All those in favor of the Harbor Master budget provisionally approved at $83,680? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-3. That is the end of the police department, correct? And now we move on to fire department. Chief has been sitting there patiently, and I see the deputy chief in the back corner over there quietly sitting there.
Mr. President, with respect to expenditures on fire, again, we factored in they get a 2.5% raise. It's a contractual raise this year. We worked with Chief Cranston to bring in the salary line slightly below what it was last year by 0.34%. So it comes in at $3,108,682. The benefits line comes in at $2,335,409. It's a 0.38% increase for total salaries and benefits of $5,444,091. So a 0.03% increase over last year. So essentially level funded. With respect to operations, we're looking at about a slight decrease in costs at minus 1.1%, coming in at $632,050. So a total fire budget at minus 0.14% over last year at $6,076,142.
Any questions on the fire department budget?
I have one.
Yes. Mr. Kessler?
The same thing we're struggling with police, which is overtime shortage, personal overtime shortages. Adopted was 350. In 6 months, we almost did 200. From what we heard from the police, I believe we're not going to solve full staffing at the fire department right away.
Not right away, sir. We do have one person in the academy right now that will be ready for July 1st, so that'll be a step towards getting back up to full staff. But
that's one out of how many missing?
There was 4 total. So we have one that's hired the academy.
So we're still down at 3?
That's correct.
This budget includes funding for 3, but staffing is minus 3.
That's correct.
I know I had mentioned a provision that the police department can do, I hate the word steal from other towns, but it is steal from other towns, but do we have that in our contract? We can hire from outside? We don't have to?
We do. We're in the process of trying to fill one vacancy, and we do have lateral transfers is what we refer to them as, open right now.
And the chief and I have had a few conversations. He is in dire need of $1 million boat, and he had a request in this budget for $1 million boat because the current boat is on its last legs. I have made a promise to him, and I'm working with our congressional delegation to try and find $1 million boat.
I appreciate your support.
And it hasn't happened yet, but I'm still working on it. In fact, I got an email from the congressional staff about all the new equipment for Woonsocket, to which I properly responded, where's my boat?
Right, and I discussed it with them. I went down to Washington last Wednesday and had a similar discussion with all of our congressional delegation.
It shocked me that a member of our congressional delegation didn't realize that we have the most water and shoreline to cover of any other community in the state.
We do, and we respond to more water emergencies than any other community in the state as well. Not to mention Prudence Island.
So some support from our federal delegation will go a long way. So we will continue to pound away at that drum. Anybody have other questions or comments?
To that point then, Mr. President, what is going to be the funding mechanism for this new boat?
We don't have a new boat.
We don't.
I understand, but in future years.
The plan would be to, if I can speak.
Sure.
Not to cut you off, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
But the plan would be to apply for another port security grant, which we have applied for over the past 4 years. We haven't been awarded the grant, and it's based on risk. It is a port security grant, so it's based on the risk to the Port of Providence. So although I like to think we had a well-written grant and described the hazards that come up the East Passage and the bridges that we have in our community. And
it didn't include the port at Quonset?
It didn't include that. The bottom line that I was told was that, you know, although it would be catastrophic if one of our bridges were to come down, or God forbid something like that would happen, it really wouldn't stop traffic flow to the Port of Providence. When you look at, like, say, the Newport, City of Newport just got the port security grant, the Newport Bridge coming down would be a huge interruption to the Port of Providence. So
the reason I mentioned the Quonset is if they lose a section as it's being loaded in Quonset to take it to Groton, there is a huge impact to be able to produce 355 ships, to get the Navy to 355 ships. I think when you write the grant, you ought to figure out what that's worth and see if there's a dock that's and some kind of a national asset that's being built that's more at risk than a bridge.
Right. I'll certainly take that into consideration in the
Not
next
that I'm a
grant
terrorist or
process.
anything, but
Not much is going up to Fall River anymore, right?
Not that I'm
Especially with Brayton Point closing down. Okay. The only other suggestion that the congressional delegation did make, and I will reach out, is formulating some kind of a regional approach to it with Tiverton and Bristol, specifically Bristol. I know Bristol got a port security grant. I don't know what they used it for last
They
year.
got one for a much lesser amount, and I think their harbor master is using part of it, but we take a regional approach already to responding to emergencies on the water. We did have a key part in developing the Narragansett Bay Marine Task Force, so the problem with getting a regional boat is then you're reducing the amount of assets you have responding to a call.
Right, I'm not suggesting we get a regional boat, but part of the application is we already do mutual aid. If, God forbid, there's a fire here, Bristol comes, Middletown comes, Tiverton comes. If there's an issue on the water in Bristol, you're going to respond. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for every grant that we apply for, whether it's AFG or port security, we certainly put a lot into the benefits to us surrounding communities, because it certainly is helpful in getting an award. And we will keep that in mind when we apply.
And the port security is coming open shortly.
I'm not sure if it's coming in shortly. It's usually like, I think, a February thing.
Okay. I thought that was the aid to firefighters was in
Or
January.
maybe I might have them mixed up.
Okay. They're supposed to let us know when the next round comes up.
Yeah, and
So-
and I will say our congressional delegation has been fantastic about supplying letters of support, whether it be for the port security or the assistance to firefighters grant. They certainly have written letters of support in the past and pledged their support in the future, so we appreciate that.
one more question. The $4,000 in electricity, is that because of the mini splits and cooling the sleeping space?
Are you talking about an increase, Mr. Kessin?
4,000 over 16 or 17 it is when it
You know,
went up?
I think part of that is actually what we talked about earlier with the upgrades, and then paying for those upgrades and the cost of our electricity.
Okay. So you've gotten LEDs at the station?
We have some. We had done, recently, we did the upgrades with, what was it, T5s or?
Yeah, Right now, we have E&E's did a survey at the police station, and it's just, we had to contact National Grid Service.
But that means we haven't done the upgrades, and that's not what's driving this
Oh, so
cost.
maybe it is the mini splits, but we did do upgrades fairly recently.
But the upgrades are funded by on-bill financing.
Yes, they have.
But we haven't done them yet.
Right.
So
I'm just trying to
We'll
understand the
anticipate
increase.
doing them next year.
The anticipation is to do them next year, which will be funded through the increase in the budget.
But we did do, to set the record straight, we did do upgrades fairly within the last couple of years. And I thought that we were paying for those upgrades as well through the
On-bill
through the
financing.
on-bill payment.
Any further questions for the chief on the budget for the fire department? We have a motion to provisionally set the fire department budget at $6,076,142. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Woodhead.
Now we're up to Public Works. As you're aware, the director is still out due to an injury suffered on the job. He's been out for an extended length of time, so we just level funded his salary. So when he comes back, it'll be more than what he's making right now in workman's comp, but he'll be making the salary that we programmed for last year, which we never paid him.
So is that money available for the boat and motor fund?
No.
About half of it.
That's in this year's budget, not next year's budget.
Yeah, well, I don't know what his prognosis is.
We did factor in the negotiated pay increase that was voted on last night. We had anticipated that for DPW. So DPW comes in, pay and benefits, salaries at $1,173,388. That's a slight decrease of 0.11%. And the benefits at $715,321 at minus 2.11%. You get into the operations. Of note here, the facilities management line. This now reflects the first year where we pay our full share of the shared facilities manager. The agreement was the school would pay the majority of that the first year because he was getting these schools upgraded and getting all their documented maintenance programmed into a planned maintenance system. So we're looking at proposed expenditures of $751,182, an increase of 7.94%, for a total budget for DPW increase at 1.48%, or $2,639,839,890.
Questions for any of these line items here on the DPW budget?
But of course, the lease for the lease when,
There was an error last year.
okay. Thank you very much. Ends that question. So have we started the streetlight program?
That was, yes, we've contracted, we've done the study.
We've done the study, we haven't started replacing
We'll
units.
start replacing those this summer.
So we've spent nothing against the 2018 budget for this?
I'd have to take a look. I don't think we've spent any of that money yet. Yeah.
No.
The second question I have is grass cutting. I notice there's a new RFP on the website.
Correct.
Does this number, 62,500, reflect an anticipated cost of only $1,000 more than the last year's?
It does, the bids come out on Wednesday or Thursday, I think.
So this number could change drastically like it did the transfer station?
I don't know if it's going to change dramatically. I think it's going to change because we did add in a few other things. We're going to put,
It looked like we added in quite a few sites.
we did, and then we also added in playground mulch for the playgrounds, for our 3 playgrounds, so that's going to come out of the capital improvement plan too. We used to have $20,000 in the capital improvement. We knocked that down to $5,000. So there's a couple added things in there, so it might go up somewhat. I'm not quite sure what the price is going to be. There was 3 vendors at the bid, so I think it's going to be pretty competitive.
And that's a bid split between
School,
the school.
School, the town, and the library.
So what's the acreage that we added?
Elmhurst Park, that was the only acreage we added.
And now
We'll
we're
be
gonna
in
have, and now we're
something
gonna have to maintain Coxhill School, which wasn't on it either, is it, right?
Coxhill School was always on.
We always
Was it?
maintain it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just outside the fences. The Little League does inside the fences.
Correct, everything else. So that's-
And the street light line item is actually the electricity we're paying for the street lights, not the lease program.
That's correct. So as these things are being shifted out, that price will come down.
Any further questions on the DPW budget? The big cost drivers are,
Well, I see a 40% increase in electricity at Town Hall.
that's the on-bill financing again, to pay for all the new lights.
So that's not the electric bill for the Town Hall.
It is the electric bill.
Yeah, that's on-bill repayment of the upgrades, and then an analysis looked to see, as we analyzed this, it looked at, we may pay an increased electricity costs next year.
So for 5 years, we're paying for all of the upgrades on our electric bill. Once we hit that 5th year, they fall off. And all of our new lights are paid for.
There's none of this is based on, the costs are based on the coming off National Grid being 1 year on the turbine, and from the increase from 2017, from 16 to 19 is the turbine increase? Is that what it is? When I see the actuals in 2016 at 26,000, the actuals in 2017 at 43,000, there's still no LEDs in the town hall, but
Yes, there are.
but we,
They're over your head right now.
so we did $23,000 worth of, yeah, I know, they look like regular fluorescent tubes to these
Okay.
old eyes, but that's okay.
These are
Okay.
LEDs. The only thing they could not switch out these fixtures, they only could switch out the bulbs. Everything else has new fixtures and bulbs. This is the only place they couldn't change out the fixtures, but these do have new bulbs in them.
Okay. Now I understand the electricity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. And then the other increases, the CDL stipend went up because that was contractually based on the new contract. And the radios jumped. Are we replacing all the radios? Or is that to get you in line with,
Radios, our radios are in the obsolete phase right now. Our radios can't keep be replaced in our trucks, so we're trying to replace them as we go along year to year, and they're kind of expensive.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to provisionally approve the DPW budget? Where is that bottom line?
$2,639,891.
That's the number.
Motion to approve the,
Hold on a second.
On page 45.
right,
Well,
2
no,
million.
because if we go down to, so we're going to do the snow removal as a separate line item of 774,000.
I believe that's what we did last
Okay.
year.
We do those separate.
Okay, fine, just want to make sure.
So you want the $2,639,891
To be provisionally approved.
provisionally approved, especially in light of the fact that's 1.48% increase, which is less than inflation?
Don't remind Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll do labor costs for snow removal, which is $79,279. A motion to provisionally approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And then materials for snow removal and then road improvement, which is $600,000 for a total of $695,000 for materials. I'm assuming that's salt and sand for snow.
Yes.
Yeah. And a motion to provisionally approve the road improvement and snow at $695,000.
And we're also improving the roads program, correct?
Correct. And then we'll do the bottom line, which we could have just done, I guess,
Motion to approve.
provisionally.
Provision.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-1, and then...
I'm against it because of the
5-2.
600,000, Mr. President.
Right, understood. So it's 5-2. All right, Liz, you're negative? Thank you. And then a total line item for labor, snow removal, road improvements of $774,279. A motion to provisionally approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Next up, our new line item for the Prudence Island Transfer Station. Motion to provisionally approve at $136,950. Since we all agreed on doing this 6 months ago,
The only thing I don't
this should
have...
be an easy one.
The only thing I don't have is I don't have any evidence that the numbers are accurate, because I haven't been able to track that in the budget. Second thing is, it's not that I wouldn't do it. I don't understand right now the amount of stickers, which are on the main island, which are on Prudence, but we should somehow get some paperwork that justifies.
Prudence Island sticker sales are separated out, so they're not...
Yeah, but are 80 or are there 600 houses, like I've been reported from Prudence Island? There's actually 600 houses over there, but yet we only sell 200 stickers. You know?
We sell a lot of 1 week passes, and we sell a lot of 1 month and then 3.
And that's added in this budget?
That gets added into the revenue line.
Into this revenue line?
No, that's an
Yeah.
expenditure line.
Previously, that got added into
It's over
the
here.
enterprise fund, but that will all be added into the general fund now.
That's up in the revenues.
Yeah, it is here in revenue.
For $22,500, is that what, if I remember correctly, Liz?
But that's both stations, right?
No.
No,
That's just
all-
Prudence.
That's just Prudence.
The Headley Street Station, those sticker sales go into the enterprise fund. The Prudence Island Transfer Station, those sticker sales are reflected in the revenue line item that we briefed earlier.
And the bag sales from Prudence actually go into the enterprise fund.
There's no way to separate the bag sales.
So it was $22,000?
$22,500 in all the different sticker sales. 1 week passes, full year stickers.
They're 1 month, sorry, they're 1 month and 4 month. Because a lot of rentals.
So we've sold 160, almost 160 stickers?
Not yet.
Okay.
People don't buy their stickers until, well, now or next
Well,
week.
they're-
They're coming in now.
They're just now starting to buy their stickers.
Unless they're just starting to go back to the island, taking the plywood off the windows and all that fun stuff.
Okay. Motion to approve those Prudence Island expenditures at $136,950
Provisionally.
provisionally.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And the last and final budget, as I see Chief sitting there patiently, I didn't forget about you, Chief. I believe it's under civic support, correct? For the Prudence Island Fire Department?
Correct.
I would hate to have Chief come back.
I think you want to take tomorrow night.
We had projected to do that, but...
Do you want to come back again tomorrow night?
Sure.
No?
Very educational.
I think you're here. If you're planning on coming back anyways, fine, but since you're here, we can do it. I don't want you to have to travel back. I'll take the arrows if somebody wants to call me out on a agenda violation.
What page? What page?
We're going on the civic support, so that's
53.
page...
He's on 53.
Yeah, 53.
53.
Yes. So we have the Prudence Island Volunteer Fire Department budget, which is essentially level funded at $168,800. You weren't here last night. We did put in a CBD block grant for the cisterns.
Yes.
So-
Kevin Bloom.
Yep.
I'm asking for a $20,000 increase. We were going to ask for 37. As you know, Kevin retired, and we don't have an assistant chief. That $20,000 you gave me last year, I offered it internally to the fire captain and the fire lieutenants, and they all refused the promotion. So I came up with a program called the Officer in Charge Program. It's kind of like what Chief Cranston did over here, making shift commanders. And they work on a daily basis as we do the EMT program, which is a $100 a day stipend. I'm trying to catch up with NFPA 1720. Portsmouth follows 1710. But for a remote rural area, it requires 4 firefighters to respond to a scene. I currently have 2 on duty daily for that stipend. So with the assistant chief, the OIC's program is going very well, and I don't want to get rid of it. If I promote an assistant chief from the outside, I won't have any funds to pay him. I would have to do away with that program. So I'm asking for $20,000 to support the assistant chief, and we'll take $5,000 from our collections that we get from donations and put it towards his salary. It'll be a part-time job of 20 hours per week.
So there is a line item for the chief at $20,000.
Right, we did not use it for that. I could not get anybody to fill the position.
But it is still there for, so are you?
No, I used that 20,000 to create this other
Officer in
program.
Charge program.
So you're asking for $188,800.
A 20,000 increase, I think that's the
It's 188, well, if it's 20,000 over what you had last year.
Yep.
It's 188.
So this budget's wrong?
No, it's not wrong.
Well, it's 168, 168. Shouldn't it be 188?
No. No.
He's asking for...
He's asking us now to give him an extra
An extra
$20,000
$20,000
over what the administrator has approved or has put forth in his budget through the course of the last 6 months.
Right, so that would bring it to 929.
No.
No,
Well,
I'm
it would
sorry.
break, well,
I'm
it would
sorry.
break, just stick with the
That's total civic
188.
support. Yep, I got it.
Stick with the
I got
188.
it.
We'll do the rest of the stuff tomorrow night.
I got it.
And the reason the assistant chief is so important is I think you're all aware that over the winter months, I was seriously sick and was out of work for 5 months. I had nobody to operate that fire department. So this OIC program that we had implemented last July, it really worked out for us. I had people at least there covering shifts. But we need administrative help. I need people to help me write grants. I'm in the process right now of writing a staffing grant for recruitment and retention from the SAFER grant. We put in a grant a couple of months ago for a communications grant because I'm using portables that are from the 1980s. So we're trying to upgrade and come up with a little safer plan than what they have been operating with. And this will just help us out.
Right, this is where I ask weird questions. So, Chief Lee, when you replace all of your radios, could the old radios be transferred to Prudence Island and still work for them? And are they newer than 1980?
The 800 megahertz?
No.
They couldn't be done.
Okay.
They're not the same, they're not the same ones. You know, you guys don't, what are you guys on the VHF?
Yes.
VHF?
Yeah, okay.
Right, separate radios.
Okay. As you have heard with the Harbor Master discussion, money is tight. We can put a placeholder in looking for an extra $20,000. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. If we provisionally approve this at 168.8, and then if there's any place else that anybody has found in the rest of the budgets that we're going forth. We've chopped out a lot of stuff. I can't make a promise that it's going to be there, but I can promise that we're definitely going to look for it. It's
Fair enough.
It's a very difficult budget year.
I understand.
And we'll definitely be able to look at it next year when hopefully things level out a little bit.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to provisionally approve the Prudence Island Volunteer Fire Department budget at $168,800 with the promise to the chief that we will look for the extra $20,000?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Chief, thank you very much for coming in tonight. And we will let you know, or Rich will let you know, or if you're that, want to have a fun, exciting Wednesday night, you're more than welcome to come back tomorrow. We are now done with what was on the agenda for this evening, plus one extra with the Fire Department of Prudence Island. I have a motion to adjourn, and we will return tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I'm not going to guarantee you tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Can I get a second from somebody? I got 3 motions to adjourn and not a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everybody.